Hold on, just 1 second. I'll tell you about the video, just 1 second. Yes, so good. Sonic. We are going to do a video today where we react to were the film critics right about the Sonic movies? I've just recently seen Sonic 3, so this is absolutely perfect. Let me know if you guys want me to put out a review of Sonic 3. I absolutely will if that's what you guys want. However, I'm not going to waste your time. Subscribe to me, subscribe to this person, and most importantly, subscribe to yourself. Self love is important these days, ladies and gentlemen. We begin.
Looking at the points made by both Rotten Tomatoes critics and audiences.
There may be spoilers in here. Fair warning if you haven't seen Sonic 3, okay? But it's kind of like Dragon Ball Daima is right now. If you're not going to see a Sonic fan, or if you're just a fan of the movies themselves, my friend, what are you doing?
And finally deciding which score was more correct. So, let's start at the very beginning. Sonic the Hedgehog. This was the
Hell
most
yeah.
anticipated video game movie of all time. I think everyone at one
Boy, did that have a rocky start. Glad this is the hedgehog that we ended up frickin' seeing.
point or another had some experience with Sonic, whether they played the games, or watched the TV
That's
shows,
me.
or watched a lot of early YouTube.
I've been on the internet a little bit too long. From the early days of the internet to what we have now, I've seen versions of Sonic I wanted to see, and I have also loved the versions of Sonic that the official material has put out.
I myself went through a Sonic phase as a kid. I know everyone hates it, but Sonic Unleashed was my favorite game at the time.
Sonic Unleashed was sick. I don't know why people hate the Sonic games so much. Maybe I should do like a marathon playthrough or something where I just play through all the Sonic games. Although some of them are going to be hard to get, but like maybe we just play all the mainline games. It's like 22 games or something like that.
Because Sonic was just like me. He had that dog in him.
Yeah, dude. Werewolf Sonic was so good,
The
dude.
best part about this first Sonic movie is that it really succeeds at bringing Sonic and the Sonic lore to life. In the very
True.
beginning, we get a pretty extensive scene that shows us where Sonic came from, with all the loop-de-loops, the echidnas, and Longclaw, who's his parental figure, and the rings.
One thing that this game does, or this game, focus. One thing these movies do is a great job of doing callbacks to the games, to the different types of media that Sonic has been a part of, whether it's been a TV show, or the games or promotional material. Like there is something for everyone in every type of Sonic fan, except for you fucking weirdos out there.
The important items in the movie that allow Sonic to teleport to different worlds and whatnot. They're basically the Doctor Strange portals, except I bet they don't have a 3-minute cooldown. And Sonic
Yep.
himself is very well characterized. He is very jokey, snarky, and quippy like he is in the games, although he does toe the line between being quippy and being annoying. There were just a few moments where his constant joking got on my nerves a bit.
Sonic 1, a big tank 0.
I don't really mind it. I think it's honestly, it's pretty perfect. It works. As far as like a cinematic like perspective, it works. I think you need to have them this way, especially because now we're getting so much further deep into the lore and we have so many different personalities. Keeping Sonic the way that he is the optimal route to go. Obviously, you don't want to push it too far, but I think towing the line is what is going to keep people coming in because it's simply a matter of adding variables to an already crazy intense story. And we already got, I'm not going to spoil it, but we got some crazy previews for the next one. And it's going to add even more characters, which I think you have to really keep the characters in their I mean, you can give them like development and that sort of stuff, but if they move away to their main personalities, it's gonna be fucking weird, and it's gonna start fucking adding different variables that don't need to be there on an already very complicated lore. Because like most people only know surface level Sonic. I'm be honest, they don't know how deep that Sonic lore goes. The Sonic lore is crazy.
A big controversial aspect of
It's
Sonic's
like
adaptation
fate.
in this film is his voice. He doesn't really sound like traditional Sonic. In this entire franchise, he's voiced by Ben Schwartz, who you might know from Parks and Rec, and I have to say for this movie, I think his voice is very fitting. He sells the more comedic moments fairly well. I also
Absolutely.
think he's good in the
I can
more
agree with
dramatic
that.
moments. Schwartz is able to give so much emotion to Sonic through his voice. And the other half of what makes Sonic, the CGI, is also very convincing. You really believe this animated blue hedgehog
Oh
guy
my
is
god, they
actually
killed
there.
it with the
And
CG.
really, I'm thankful Sonic looks like this because I was there day one when
Yep.
Paramount
Yep.
Pictures released the very first trailer for the live-action Sonic movie. When in the eyes of God and man, they showed us this. It will go down in history.
Alpha Sonic. Yeah, this is literally Alpha Sonic before the beta, before the player test, before the fucking early like this is this is like pre-alpha almost of Sonic, man. It's like, holy, how'd you even where did who passed that and was like, "Hey, people are gonna like that."
History is one of the funniest things ever when the internet bullied a multi-billion-dollar studio into changing Sonic's CGI model. Freaking insane. Sonic's story
Yep, this is same thing that we need to do with these different fucking gaming industries. Like the fucking what are we doing putting out wants to play? The Western market is the one that needs the bully, to be honest, because the Chinese market has already started to shift, and that's a whole nother video. So I'm not gonna go crazy with that. But the point is, it works. Bullying works. Okay, I'm not saying go bully little Timmy. Okay, leave him alone. Okay, he's trying to live his life. But when these corporations are out here making fuck ups, we as the consumers have the power. Let them know.
in the first movie isn't the most revolutionary thing ever, but it's still pretty well done. The last thing Longclaw ever told him was to never stop running, so naturally Sonic takes these words to heart and never allows
True.
himself to stop running to make friends and to find a place to call home. He just constantly goes from place to place. We see how this loneliness really affects Sonic, and he has a compelling arc of finding family with Tom and Maddie, which, speaking of, the human characters aren't the most compelling. Tom is fine. I like James Marsden, but this character is not the best.
I don't need to be. I'm gonna be honest. They don't need to be. We're not here to see him and his girly friend or his wife or whatever. We're not here to see them. We're here to see Sonic. Straight up. No ifs, ands, buts about it. He has to be decent. He can't be bad. Okay, because if he is bad, it will drag down the movie a little bit. But he at least has to be decent. I will say that it gets better as it goes. I think he starts to find that niche a little bit more. And we're still, keep in mind, we're still in the very early stages. We've only just hit the third movie, and it sounds like they want to push this quite far. So who knows?
I really enjoyed a lot of his scenes with Sonic, but his story of deciding whether or not he wants to be a San Francisco cop or staying sheriff of his small town was pretty meh. And Maddie, Wade, Rachel, and Agent Stone are all fine, but not exceptional side characters. While most of the human characters were mid at best, there is one exception. Dr. Robotnik, baby. Jim Carrey as Robotnik is one of the all-time great casting decisions. He really is a scene stealer. Jim Carrey is a legend, and it's no different here. Robotnik having the story of going completely insane is hilarious.
The correct thing they did was letting Jim Carrey be Jim Carrey. Rather than forcing him to be a Robotnik, him take the Robotnik character and make it Jim Carrey's Robotnik. And so far, killing it. Oh my god, is it good.
And Carrey sells every beat of that story. He also gave us this meme, so yeah, he's the best part of this movie. As an action film, Sonic the Hedgehog really works. There are a few really great action sequences like the highway chase, or the bar fight that does kind of completely rip off the scene from X-Men Days of Future Past, or the very final fight where Sonic finally masters his powers and sends Robotnik to the Mushroom Kingdom. Wait, no, that's not right. That's the other guy.
It's a me, a Mario.
But my personal favorite is the chase sequence through Sonic's portals. This sequence is just so incredibly well crafted and so visually stunning. I mean, look at this, it's incredible. The last thing I want to say about the first Sonic movie is that, yeah, the story is kinda generic. It's the very typical alien befriending the human story, like E.T. or
Here's the deal with first time movies, right? And especially like first in the series iterations, is going to be the most boring. The beginning of TV shows, like the beginning of anime, you can expect the first season to be the most boring of all the seasons because it's meant to set up this large overarching story. And in movies, it's no different. However, this one is a little bit more honed in, which is actually why I think it's more successful as a first iteration of a franchise than a lot of them end up being because they've actually managed to somewhat hone it in a little bit, but they still use it as a stepping stone movie to kind of give you the lore, a little bit of a background on Sonic, who he is, a little bit of background on Robotnik and who he is, and then you still get that climactic clash. And it makes for an overall good experience, and it keeps people wondering what is number 2 gonna bring.
the Iron Giant or Bumblebee, and it follows all the similar beats without adding much. The human meets the alien, they grow a friendship, a governing human body tries to kill the alien, blah blah blah. It's all very familiar, but at least the movie found a place to put in Sanic. That to this day still makes me chuckle. I mean, it's freaking Sanic. But what did the critics and audiences have to say? The film received a very mid 64% from critics and an incredibly high 93% from audiences. A lot of
Yeah, I think a lot the response from the audience is always the one I consider the most. Uh, if I were to try to like put a number to something, right? Um, if the audience score and the critic score has a vast difference, then your safe bet for the movie, if you're like a numbers person before you go into a movie, you have to see the critic score, you have to see the audience score, uh, and that formulates your expectations on the movie. I don't think that way, but if you do think that way, your safest bet, because I'm gonna be honest with you, critics are almost 100% wrong. Almost 100%. Um, and that's not exclusive to movie critics. That's just in general. Um, because my thing with critics is they get lost in the sauce. All right. Eventually, you watch so many movies, you play so many games, you listen to so much music. Eventually, it's going to weigh on your score because you're not looking at it from a proper lens anymore because you've heard everything. You've seen everything, you've played everything. So eventually, the food critic, same way. Yep, food critic, good example, same way. Food critic. Another one. You eat so many different varieties of food, you're just gonna it's okay. Yeah, it's alright. It's okay. It's alright. Nah, this ain't great. Nah, it's not inventive. Of course it's not inventive. You're a fucking freak. You've seen 1,000 movies in the last 12 months. Okay? The rest of us watched like 10. Okay? So we're going in with a completely different perspective than a critic. So usually the fair rating is probably somewhere in the upper middle, I'm gonna say. Somewhere in the upper middle is probably where the fair rating for the movie is, when there's a disparity. I mean, if it's pretty even, then it's probably somewhat accurate, right? But, as far as, like, something like this would go, like a 60% to a 90%, it's probably like a 75, 80 around there. So most people in general probably going to think it's like an 8 out of 10 movie. And respectively it is. and it does carry heavy on nostalgia because for a lot of people, this is their return to Sonic. And they won against the corporation. They got their true Sonic like it should have been.
Critics held the opinion that the movie was better than most video game adaptations, although not great. As an adaptation of a video game, it's certainly clearing the low bar set by every one of its predecessors, but it's not truly special enough to transcend that. But audiences thought the film really delivered as a Sonic film. I'm a die-hard
True.
Sonic fan, and I can tell you that this is a good movie. The comedy is consistently good, the action is even better, and the film's got its fair share of Easter eggs. I do feel like it could have had more
Right.
action, and that Robotnik's mustache could have been different. Still though, this movie kickstarted the entire Sonic movie franchise, and it's worth a watch. The biggest positive the critics had
Fair.
for the first Sonic
Fair.
film was Jim Carrey. Adults, even a middle-aged millennial, should get a kick out of seeing Jim Carrey actually have fun in a role for the first time in years. He taps into all his old manic energy here. Even the audience members who didn't love the movie
Fair.
thought Jim Carrey was great. Sonic
Yeah, so I have a friend that absolutely does not like Jim Carrey. I don't know why, and I never cared to ask. But I took them three, and they said overall they like the movie. And keep in mind, this is for somebody who is not a Sonic fan. They don't know what the fuck's going on. They didn't see one or two, and their score was like a 7 out of 10. So if they gave a 7 out of 10 when knowing nothing about the movie, just going to see it the first time, so I'm telling you, Sonic 3, y'all gonna be crazy about that shit. Especially if you've seen the first two Sonics.
the Hedgehog is a typical video game adaptation with very little care for its source material, which just winds up being a both soulless and generic milk of a beloved franchise with horrible jokes, minus Jim Carrey, and an overall forgettable plot. And then you have the fans who just love the movie
Jesus.
purely because it's a Sonic.
Yeah, I think that was a bit harsh. I think that's like that's like a review for like taking itself very, very seriously. One thing you'll notice throughout the Sonic series is it keeps that lightheartedness and it keeps that, well, sort of. Like again, I'm not gonna spoil Sonic 3. Um, so the best way I think to go about this would be to understand the fact that these movies do not take themselves seriously. This isn't the Titanic. This isn't the Revenant. This isn't Great Gatsby. Okay. I don't know what's another critically acclaimed movie. This isn't A Star Is Born or anything like that. Like it's not some critically Oscar-winning fucking. It's simply a movie about a blue hedgehog from space. All right, you got to be able to have fun.
Movie. After looking through a lot of the critics and audience reviews, I have to be honest and say I mostly agree with the critics. The first Sonic film was good, but not great. It's for sure a solid video game adaptation.
I disagree. I think it's. I think it's probably they're probably a little low. I could see if I had to give it a score, 7 out of 10. So I think they definitely need to go up a little bit. They're too harsh on a movie based off of a video game character. Okay, you can't take a movie like this seriously. I mean, it's written on the wall.
With a fun lead character and a fantastic Jim Carrey performance, but it's held back by its generic story, its stale human characters, and some failed attempts at humor. It's a solid 6 out of 10 movie.
Bro, are you flirting with my sister?
Yes, I am.
Do you want to die?
Yes, I do.
Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is a movie that I actually think is better than the original. It has its problems for sure, but it also does so many things very well, like introducing new characters. Knuckles is an absolutely fantastic antagonist turned good guy character. I love how his powers are represented. I love his CGI design. I love his constant lines about being an echidna warrior.
I will shatter them like the bones from a fallen. Oh, they are stairs.
He reminds me a lot of Thor.
Hey, shout out to Red Tims, by the way. W fucking design on the Red
CGI
Tims.
design. I love his constant lines about
Look at
being an
them Tims,
echidna
dude.
warrior.
I will shatter them like the bones from a fallen. Oh, They
I
are
need me a
stairs.
pair
He
of them,
reminds me a
bro.
lot of Thor from the first Thor movie, a person who comes from a warrior culture and sounds insane to all of us softies here on Earth, and Idris Elba's vocal performance really works for this
Oh my
character. Oh
god,
hey,
Idris
he was also
killed
in the
it.
first Thor movie. How about that? Also, have you guys seen that clip of him doing his lines with the Knuckles gloves? Now that's dedication to the role, that's what we like to see.
Yeah, no, he's fucking loving it, dude. Oh my god.
Tails is also a fun new character. Again, he has a great design and a solid vocal performance from
Tails does sound
Colleen.
good too.
O'Shaughnessy.
And a lot of the scenes with Tails and Sonic are good at growing the bond between the two characters. Tails is a character who tends to get overlooked a lot, even though he is really important. So I really enjoyed his presence in the film, as the tech guy who fought with all his gadgets and gizmos. Even outside of them just being on the surface cool characters, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles all have pretty
I do like that in the latest movie, since this isn't really a spoiler, he does steer away from the gadgets a little bit, but it was a second movie. The second movie, they didn't have him like no, 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 it was the third movie. The third movie was like a mix of both. It had a little bit of gadgety stuff in it, but it was also Tails just using the fact that he can fucking fly, because that should be like a very obvious advantage. Also, perfect fucking stop right here. Perfect pause. Look at this. I need a pair of these. Somebody let me know where I can get a pair of these Knuckles Tims, bro.
well developed character arcs. Sonic has this story about learning to be a responsible leader. He's a reckless hero who, yes, saves the day, but also leaves a ton of destruction
Ish.
in his path, and generally forgets
Saves the
about the
day
well-being
ish.
of others. But as the movie progresses, Sonic spends more time with Tails and eventually Knuckles, and he learns the true value of leadership. He now has a better understanding of how to look out for the people he cares about. Tails has a smaller but nice story of gaining confidence. We learn that on his home planet, he used to get bullied over his two tails, which I have to say, I can't really imagine that. Wow, look at Tails with his extra tail.
I can. Listen, you gotta remember, the generation that's now currently watching this gets bullied over Fort. Imagine if somebody came to school with a tail, like Goku or some shit, with a fucking monkey tail.
What a freaking loser. What, are you gonna start flying like a helicopter with your extra tail? What a freak. Because of his past experiences, he feels like he can't do the things that Sonic and Knuckles do, but Sonic helps to give him the necessary encouragement, and now he's a full member of Team Sonic. Knuckles has the most obvious character arc. He starts off as the last member of the Echidna warrior clan, but after coming to an understanding with Sonic, he now sees them as his new clan. And when Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles team up at the end, seeing each of their character arcs come full circle is truly something special.
This is our moment.
Dr. Robotnik is back, and he's once again a fantastic villain. A lot of this movie's plot
True.
is driven solely by him, and after he gobbles down the Master Emerald, he becomes an actually intimidating enemy. Seriously, Jim Carrey becoming a god was truly terrifying.
That
I
shit
thought he
was
was gonna make a
crazy.
monkey come out of this guy's butt.
Hey, don't forget your parting gifts.
Did that monkey just come out your crack, man?
And I really like Robotnik's design in this movie. It feels like over the course of the Sonic trilogy, as he becomes more and more insane, he transforms from Dr. Robotnik to Eggman, if that makes sense. I don't know, he just becomes more and more Eggman-y as the trilogy progresses. This movie isn't perfect though. There are some plot points that feel really pointless. We follow Tom and Maddie as they're attending Rachel's wedding, and there's a whole thing where the wedding is actually fake and the guy she's marrying is a government agent who catfished her so the government can capture Sonic and Tails. What? If that's as far as this story went, it would be fine. But there's a whole scene where Randall confesses to Rachel that he actually does love her, and I am so bored. This whole storyline feels like a waste of time. We also cut to Wade a few times as he investigates Dr. Robotnik's lab, and yeah, I am just not a Wade fan. His scenes are just not that funny and they feel like a waste of time. But Sonic the Hedgehog 2 does have some amazing action sequences. The entertainment value of this movie is
I'm not gonna keep touching on this, but like I said before, this is you gotta understand. This is literally a movie about a blue hedgehog. Um, I don't know what else to say other than like this is not a critic's movie. It's not going to be a critic's movie. It never will be a critic's movie. This is literally for the fans. And no offense to the critics, but your opinions don't matter. The fans' opinions matter because that's what determines whether a movie is successful or not. Now, we're at a weird position, like where critics are being officially not ostracized from society, but they're being pushed out, definitely. People don't want to hear their opinions anymore because their credibility has been ruined on several occasions. This is not as strong in the movie industry, um, but it is very apparent in the gaming industry. It's one of the things that I keep seeing talked about over and over is how bad the critics are. Um, so it is something that you need to consider when going into these movies and not putting such harsh judgment on them is because they're not going to be that critics movie. They're not trying to go for the best of all time. They're simply trying to be the best version of that universe for the audience. That is what Marvel did. That's why it was good. And that's why all the frickin' whatchamacallits, the DC movies, that's why they were shit. Because they try to go for the critic score, not the fan score.
Is through the roof. Sonic's first brawl with Knuckles is brutal with memorable moments. The avalanche scene is really intense and has some of the
True.
funniest interactions between Sonic and Knuckles.
I've been training for this my entire life.
And I had no training at all, yet here I am ahead of you.
Sonic's final fight with Knuckles is really exciting and has some great visuals. And the final fight with Dr. Robotnik is epic and emotional, especially when
It was
Sonic
cool.
turns into Super Sonic and it's so fucking cool. But what did the critics and audiences think? The film earned a higher score from both groups, a 69%, nice, from the critics, and a 96 from audience.
Again, here we are. I think again, this is where you have to take the kind of middle ground of scores. Obviously a huge disparity here. We're almost at 100% for Hedgehog 2, which is crazy, by the way. Um, but yeah, so I think probably if I were to give that one a score, I gave the last one a 7. I give this one an 8. I definitely say it's a step up. Still not perfect, obviously, but it's 100% an 8.
Huh, those numbers are the same, just
I could see an
turned
argument
upside
that it's
down.
the same,
Most critics thought the sequel was better than the first, with some of them saying Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was a vastly superior sequel to the first adaptation. Entertainment levels
which is 100%. If you get the second movie being better than the first movie in overall opinion, you've fucking done your job. Because there are so many franchises that die as soon as they start because the sequel is not as good as the prequel.
soared tremendously as the action-adventure sequences amaze viewers with praiseworthy animation and visual effects. While on the audience side, they went freaking bonkers over this movie with so many 5-star reviews. After being surprised by the first one, I never thought they'd be able to pull off a great sequel, but they absolutely did. Also, Jim Carrey is the GOAT. A lot of critics weren't won over by this film though, with more cynical reviewers saying, at an incredibly baffling 2 hours and 2 minutes, a bevy of new uninteresting characters, and some unfathomably lame subplots, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 carries the weight of the franchise on its shoulders and is crushed beneath the burden. But no amount of criticism is gonna stop
There's just some people in the world that don't know how to live, man. They just don't know how to have fun. Why you gotta stop out, man? Have a Mai Tai, bro. Have a Mai Tai. Go get a massage. You're at the Four Seasons. Relax. Chill out, bro.
some Sonic fans. I mean, look at this review. It's an insane review. I don't think I've
Holy
ever loved
shit.
any movie as much as this guy loves Sonic 2. But yeah, I think I have to agree with the audiences on this one. I freaking loved Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I'm gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10 now.
Okay. Okay. It's respectable. It's about what I thought. Mine personally is an 8. His 7.5. We're right in range. I said I could see an argument for 7. So, sure. Yeah.
Now it's time to move on to the final film of the Sonic Trilogy.
Do you know the way?
Surprise, surprise,
You know
we're
the
talking
way.
about the Knuckles show that premiered earlier this year. And I'm gonna
Yep.
be honest, it's kind of bad. No, actually, it's really bad. Mostly because for a Knuckles show, it doesn't focus on Knuckles enough.
Oh no.
Yeah, it does. I fully understand that. It really fucking it oddly circles around uh a little bit too much. Um, I wanted to see more of Knuckles' journey, but we just got this weird like Wade becoming a warrior arc and Knuckles kind of gaining a buddy.
No. Oh no. Give. Oh no.
Oh no!
It really is more of a Wade Whipple show. As I mentioned earlier in this video, I'm not a Wade Whipple fan. I don't think he's funny or likable, he's just meh. And now after watching the entirety of this show, I think I like him even less.
I think they brought in enough people though on this first initial show. If they wanted to do another short like 6 episode run, dive into Knuckles a lot heavier, I think that would be good. 100%. I think they could do it. And I think just like Sonic the Hedgehog 2, it would be a good sequel. I'm behind it. I could see it. I could see a world where this becomes a thing.
Look, if you like Wade and think he's funny and really vibe with his story, that's great. But man, I really just couldn't. His story is super generic. He has this arc of finding his inner warrior and learning to not look for validation from Knuckles or from his dad who abandoned him as a kid. And this story could be good. I found it really hard to get behind Wade's character to really care, because the show still treats him as the funny side character, even though he is written to be the main character. Also, Wade's family is just awful.
Wade's family's crazy, dude. The fact that his mom is able to throw hands like Knuckles is crazy to me. If that fight scene where the people were like attacking them and her and Knuckles were in the kitchen and she was going punch for punch with Knuckles. It was nuts. Knuckles would whack a guy, and then she would whack a guy with a cast iron pan. I was like, "What the fuck?" It was so cool to watch. It was one of the nicest parts of that was it was a really good sequence.
His dad is played by Cary Elwes, and he's a very typical bad father. I really like
Yeah.
Cary Elwes, but Pistol Pete was just not it.
Of course I have issues. That's my freaking father.
His sister is a Fed, so yeah. And his mom is fine, but also
Yeah, she
really
was
generic.
strange.
Overall, the Whipples ruin any chance this show had at being good. There's nothing interesting or fresh about this family dynamic, and they all get way too
I'm
much
not gonna say
screen
it's
time.
bad,
but at
but
least Knuckles is here
I'll
for the
probably say
limited
it's
screen time
decent.
that he does have. And as a character, he's still great. Knuckles is really funny and entertaining to watch, and Idris Elba is still killing it behind.
It's like a if I had to give it a score, um, like a I'd probably give it out of 10, just because I wanted it to be centered around Knuckles. So based on my own personal opinion, it's like a 5 out of 10 for me. A little too much Wade, not enough Knuckles.
The mic. But Knuckles' story in this show is really poorly done. He's supposed to have the story of fully adjusting to Earth, seeing it as his new home, and seeing the people there as his family. But not enough happens throughout the episodes to make him have this change. He really does feel like the same exact echidna until the very end of the final episode where he's all like, yeah, this is my home and I have to defend it. And what's worse is that the show makes it seem like Knuckles' new family is the Whipples, even though it should be Sonic, Tails, Tom, and Maddie. Like, dude, don't hang out with those losers. The cool people are over there. This show really does just rub me the wrong way.
You're trash, Brock.
The villains are also awful. These two tried to hunt Knuckles throughout most of the series. They're both pretty lame and forgettable. And then there's the buyer, who I believe is supposed to be the main villain of the show, since he's the big enemy in the mech suit, who Knuckles has to fight at the very end of the series. But he only has like 2 scenes prior to the final fight, and his motivations for fighting Knuckles is
Yeah, I don't think they planned it very well.
because he wants his power for his machines, and he's upset because the government fired him because he had a more aggressive mindset towards Sonic and his friends. I guess he's just a worse Dr. Robotnik. This is just a huge waste of Rory McCann's talents. I mean, that man was the friggin' Hound. The action scenes are serviceable at best. I like watching Knuckles punch things, but outside of that, I don't think any of these are crazy inventive or anything. And whenever someone who wasn't Knuckles got in on the fight, I completely checked out. Like, the kitchen fight could have been cool, but Wade's mom is here for some reason, and that basically
The whole point of it is the fact that she's like everything that Wade has failed to be. I thought this scene was one of the more highlightable moments because she managed to go literally punch for punch with Knuckles. I'm not saying they fought because they didn't fight, but um, yeah, they literally went like punch for punch, dinner plate for punch, cast iron pan for punch.
ruined it.
We are absolutely cooked, chat. GG.
One of the worst parts about the Knuckles show is how unfunny it is. This point is probably just me because humor is subjective, but every attempt at humor felt flat for me. There's a cringeworthy musical sequence where Wade learns how Knuckles got his powers. There's also this awful duel with a
Yeah, the musical sequence is
bounty
weird.
hunter character, which felt way too silly for what the scene was going for. And there are so many other attempts at jokes that drained my soul. The Knuckles show is kind of a complete failure in my eyes. Now let's see what the critics and
I could see another issue where it's like they're trying to be like too much of a like a funny ha ha laugh at me type show. Uh, not a good attempt at comedy.
audiences had to say. The scores were flipped for this entry in the Sonic franchise, with critics giving it a shockingly high 75% and the audience a low 67%.
You see why I say the critics are wrong? There's no where this gets 75%. No realm. There's no way. Huh? It's a 5 for me. Okay? It doesn't even scrape close to 75. You mean to tell me on a scale of 0% to 100%, you gave it 75%. Over, that's a 7.5 out of 10. No, not really. It's like a 7 point something else, but um regardless, it's over a 7. Huh? Where? What? And I honestly think that I honestly think these 250 plus people are kind of crazy for the audience as well because they're a little high in my opinion.
A lot of critics thought the show was actually funny. Knuckles is an absolute riot. Wade Whipple's over-the-top antics gave the stoic Echidna a much-needed foil, and the result is a laugh-a-minute road movie that just happens to be a 6-part miniseries. But on the audience side of things, many took note of how Knuckles is sort of a supporting character in his own show. This is not a Knuckles show. The title character is barely in it, and after episode 2, the show pretty much entirely revolves around Wade, and Knuckles barely gets any focus until the final even. Definitely the worst Sonic show by far. Not that it's saying much. Not every critic loved this show, as some had serious issues with the writing. Something about the way every single scene is stretched via improvisational acting, to the point where the core themes are diluted, makes it seem like there wasn't enough material in the script to fuel 6 episodes. And then there's this review from the audience side. I'm not quite sure what to make of this, but I don't think they were that crazy about the show. Yeah, I think I lean closer to the audience on this one. Knuckles is just not a very good show. It has some of the worst characters of the franchise, some shallow writing, poorly done comedy.
No, it was one of those things like where you take those bad characters and then you make them good characters. That's what the show should have been. Would have had them grow as a character in some way, shape, or form, helping Knuckles along his journey. That's what you needed to do. And then you add all your comedic elements and all that shit as flavor for the show. But unfortunately, did not work. You got to think of like comedy in shows and movies. You got to think of it as seasoning. Nobody wants that bland ass white girl chicken that has nothing but salt and pepper on it. Like motherfucker, go get some Kinders, okay? All right. What's that cooking show I used to watch? Emerald Lagasse. Bam. Type shit. You know what I'm saying? Bam.
and it just doesn't understand why people wanted to watch the show in the first place. I can't give this show a higher score than 2 out of 10. But before
Oh, wow. He was harsh. I called it mid, but he said this shit's I'm not gonna tell him he's wrong by any means. He's absolutely entitled to that opinion. I could understand where it's coming from. It's not worth the fight on my end to fight a losing battle. That's what I'm gonna say.
we actually move on to Sonic the Hedgehog 3, I just want to say, we just hit 30,000 subs and we're getting closer to 100,000.
W.
So if you've enjoyed this video so far, why not go ahead and hit that subscribe button? Once we reach that goal, I'm going to post
Yep, subscribe to him, subscribe to me, subscribe to yourself, most importantly.
a ranking of every Star Wars movie and show, the good ones, the bad ones, everything. But until then, let's take a closer look at the newest film in this franchise.
Shadow, what the are you talking about?
You're a beta male, Sonic.
Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is absolutely
True.
phenomenal. I honestly
W
did not
Shadow.
expect to like this film as much as I do. I thought it would be just another fun Sonic adventure movie like the first two, but no.
I don't know what the budget was. Also, mad spoilers from here on out, so click off if you haven't seen the movie. Oh my god. Oh my god. It is correct. Yo, I need to know how much it cost to do this movie. It was insane. As soon as I thought we were getting toward the climactic part, the cliche sort of fucking, ending, the stuff that you could write in your sleep type shit, they just fucking hit you out of left field. And all of a sudden, we have Supersonic back, and then there's a massive clash between Shadow and Sonic, and they both go Super Shadow Sonic, and it's fucking insane. Then they have this massive Super Saiyan 2 fucking Majin Vegeta versus Goku fight, which was absolutely insane. Oh my god. It's everything I could have fucking wanted. Keanu Reeves fucking murdered it as Shadow. Are you kidding me? Oh my god.
Sonic 3 has the sauce. For starters, it presents a really interesting conflict for our main trio of characters. Sonic is really struggling to work with his team. Communications are breaking down, he's constantly running ahead without them, and it feels like Team Sonic is dysfunctional. And there's a pretty solid story of them learning
They
to
were
better work
dysfunctional
together.
as
Sonic
all
also
fuck.
has his own interesting arc of trying to stay who he is. Early on, he has a conversation with Tom, in which he tells Sonic that no matter what hardships he encounters, he can't let it change who he is. In this whole
True.
film is Sonic struggling with new hardships,
The
and this
foreshadowing
presents a
on that
whole
was
new face of Sonic which we've
crazy.
never seen before. And I have to really praise Ben Schwartz in this movie. He shows a whole new range of voice acting that I haven't seen from him before. Tails, Knuckles, Tom, and Maddie all have their moments to shine as well, and I have to praise Sonic 3 for cutting
True.
down the roles of the characters who were not working. Rachel and Wade are thankfully relegated to cameos.
I mean, it's I don't I they probably would have played a little bit more of a role. I don't know about Rachel, but Wade for sure would have. However, you're starting to get to a point to where the focus is now slowly being pulled away from the human side of the story, and it is starting to be distributed to the different hedgehogs and other characters that are starting to be introduced, because now we have Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, Shadow, and spoilers, if you're at this point, I've already warned you. Amy was showed in the cameo. And there is several others. So yeah, holy smokes. Plus, you still had Robotnik that had to play a major role in the movie. Um, it did seem like they killed him off this time. I don't know for sure. I have to actually look it up and see if Jim Carrey is still planning on being around for future Sonic movies, or if this is his swan song to the whole thing. Because I know he wasn't supposed to be even in this movie, but between the outroar of the fans and the um, Sega side of things, I think he was convinced to continue moving forward. So
Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik returns once again, but uh-oh, this time he's playing both Eggman and Gerald Robotnik. And I am not joking when I say this. This is easily one of Jim Carrey's best ever performances. This
this
is some
shit was so
serious
funny,
top
man.
tier character acting. And he also really delivers in the more emotional moments as both Ivo and Gerald. And as characters, they're both really well developed. I can't really get into it because it's too spoiler heavy, but Gerald has a solid motivation for his villainous actions, and
Yep.
Eggman has a really well developed character arc throughout the film. These two were easily one of my favorite parts of the movie, and they have some great funny moments together. And to add to that, I think this is the funniest movie of the series. Not every single joke will land
Definitely.
with every single person, of course, but there are definitely plenty of chuckles to be found.
There was literally humor for everyone in this movie. And the Libbies aren't gonna like it, but they had their chance to shine in. But they also had jokes that were aimed at their fucking nonsense. So that's the one thing about having Jim Carrey in his position. He's absolutely amazing at being one, well grounded as an individual, and two, adding the aspects of stuff that he knows of real life into it and making it feel natural. It's crazy.
Knuckles has a Family Guy style cutaway bit where we see him get scared by Casper the friendly ghost. That
Yeah,
is just pure gold. The action scenes are also
true.
the best of the entire series. Again, I can't go into detail, but the entire finale is truly something special. And the directing by Jeff
Yep.
Fowler is also really impressive. He's able to give these epic action scenes the proper scale and framing to show off all the impressive effects on display, and some of the individual shots in this movie will forever be burned into my brain. If I had any negatives
Facts.
for this movie, I guess the middle section kind of feels slow. That's mostly because Shadow gets sidelined.
It needs to be though. You can't just have a movie do a constant high throughout the whole movie because then the feel stagnant. It's the reason why Transformers fell off is because they kept riding the same high and they went high throughout the whole fucking movie. So then you felt like there was no substance throughout the movie because you have to give people some sort of like scale to things, right? So every movie's going to start off slow, introductory. Some movies they like to change that up. They go in hard and fast and loud, and then they bring you down, and then they'll ramp it back up. You never want to be at the climax the whole way through because that just ruins the whole experience. So what Sonic did in this movie was it gave you a short introduction, spiked you all the way up really quick because you have to figure out who Shadow is and this guy, he's just murdered like fucking 50,000 people. No, he didn't really do that, but he did fuck some people up. And then by the time Sonic and everybody gets involved. So then you get to that point, and then they bring you back down. You get a little bit of comedy, a little bit of side character stuff. They involve the human characters a little bit more, and then all of a sudden you get a big ramp back up. And then once you feel like you think you peaked in that movie and they're about to bring you back down, that's when the true ending sequence of the movie in the final Super Saiyan Sonic versus Shadow fight happens, which I can't believe this is not being talked about. And it absolutely blows it out of the water. The old climax no longer exists and it brings it to a whole new level. So I will actually be impressed to see how they raise the bar once again in Sonic 4. It's literally the same thing as the Godzilla series right now. The Godzilla series has gone through the same stage where they have focused human characters and then they start slowly introducing more and more monsters, and now we're getting to the point to where the story now has to start focusing more on just the monsters. And I feel like Sonic is also going to get to that level. And then you'll still have your cameos, your kind of okay, time to bring them down moments. before they spike it back up to this big climax. So, yeah, it's definitely something that you do have to consider when dealing with these large overarching franchises.
Blind as all the other characters try to break into this facility. That's
This
not even
shit,
that bad
this
of a
foot.
complaint
Hold on a minute. Hold
because
on.
I guess the knots in this section kind of feels slow. That's mostly because Shadow gets sidelined as all the other characters try to break into this facility. That's
That,
not even
that, that little moment back there. Hold on.
because Shadow gets sidelined as all the other characters
This little dance
try
sequence
to
here was fucking gold. Absolute comedy.
break into this facility. That's not even that bad of a complaint because those scenes were still entertaining. Even when Sonic 3 was kinda bad, it was still really good. But out of everything I've mentioned, there was one singular thing that truly makes Sonic 3 a fantastic film. And I think you all know who that is.
I know people are gonna say this because, yeah, Keanu Reeves as Shadow couldn't have been a better cast. It absolutely adds a completely different dynamic, a different depth to all the characters. This is a Sonic that did not know friendship, love, family, nothing. Everything he ever loved was taken from him. And he don't give a fuck. Okay, he's a fucking badass. He's most everybody's favorite character from the Sonic series. It's either Knuckles, Shadow, or Sonic. Between the three, they pretty much hold the top charts as far as like their favorite characters of the series. At least from people who are generally on the good side of things.
Shadow the Hedgehog is easily my favorite character of this entire franchise, and he's been my favorite Sonic character for years. He is the integral
See?
character and the whole reason this movie even functions. Shadow serves as Sonic's opposite. Where Sonic was able to overcome his past trauma, Shadow became defined by his. And he has this absolutely beautiful character arc that I won't spoil for any of you. I seriously didn't expect to tear up in this movie, but I honestly did at many points. And the film does a fantastic job of capturing the Shadow I grew up with. He has a perfect design.
True.
He has insane aura, and I'm just waiting for the day when someone
The
edits
aura's
his scenes
crazy.
together with a Linkin Park song. And Keanu Reeves' voice also works really well. I wasn't sure when he was first announced, but what can I say?
Was listen. I've been trying to stand by you in this video, and you're gonna say some bullshit like that? How dare you? Dare you? Count out my glorious king, Keanu Reeves. Huh? Huh? Are you kidding? Did he not see the John Wick movies? Those movies are objectively dog shit. The story's trash. Okay? The action sequences carry that movie, which he learned properly for all those movies. That was crazy. I don't ever count out my boy, Keanu. Okay? Never.
He won me over. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is the perfect way to end this trilogy of Sonic films. But what did the critics and audiences have to say? The movie received high scores from both parties. As of recording this video, it received an 87% and a 98%. Most
Still incredibly low. I honestly don't think the consumer side of it is going to get.
as of recording this
I
video,
don't
it
think they're going to
received an
hit 100.
87%
I'll be mad surprised if the.
and a 98%.
So I'll be crazy surprised if we ever hit 100 here. Um, but in 87, 90 from critic, probably the best that I can ask for from a critic. Personally, how do I feel about it? Honestly, I do think it is a fantastic step up from Sonic 2, which I gave an 8. So, you know how I'm going to do it. Naturally, I'm going to give this a 9. That is going to give very little wiggle room for the next few movies or however many movies. So, we can go down two very different routes here. Um, we can go down the route where they continue to make sequels, but they somehow manage to piece it together. Um, the other way that they could do it, because if they do it the first way, then it ends up like Fast and the Furious, and the fucking shit falls off. Nobody wants to watch it anymore because it's just fucking ridiculous nonsense thrown together. I've never even finished the Fast and the Furious series because after eight, I was done. I was like, I ain't watching this bullshit. And fucking, it was no different than fucking Star Wars. Stopped watching that shit too. Got bored. It was done. Um, the only series that I know is going strong with this concept right now is Godzilla. They're pretty much at the point to where you either make it or break it. You either make the next Godzilla insanely fucking good and you raise the bar one last time before you have to do something that brings a different depth to the story. Let me tell you why Marvel was successful. Marvel was successful because you could write a single specific story for an overarching development. And then once that story climaxed, they did a good job about bringing you into the next story. I don't give a fuck about Iron Man. I don't fucking care about Captain America. I don't care about the Hulk. Who the fuck are these guys? I don't care. My Marvel superhero, my favorite, was Thor. Was always Thor. You think I gave a fuck about Black Panther? Fuck no. I didn't know anything about Black Panther. Huh? Iron Patriot? Who the fuck is that? Spider Man? I don't give a fuck about no goddamn Spider Man. But Marvel did this so incredibly well that they brought me in to their story. They made me care about Iron Man. They made me care about Captain America. They made me care about Black Widow, of all people. They made me fucking care about these people who could get crushed under Thor's boot in an instant. I didn't care, but they did such a good job that it made me give a shit about the story and made me give a shit about where it's going. We're at the point now where Godzilla and Sonic, they both have to do the same thing. They both have three consistent movies under their belt. Okay? Godzilla's got more, technically, I know that. However, I'm talking about from when they set up the initial, okay, Kong versus Godzilla is going to happen movie. So that'd be Godzilla King of the Monsters. And then you have Godzilla X Kong. And then after that, they raised the bar again and they brought out fucking Fallen Empire or whatever the fuck it's called. Banged out those movies. Well done. But now you're at a point to where you either have to bang out another one that's even better than the last one without ruining what you got going, or you have to bring people back down, lower their dopamine, and you have to give them something else to buy into. Why should I keep watching this fucking series? Sonic is not quite there yet. I do think they can raise the bar one or two more times. Two's kind of risky, one time for sure. Then they got to bring you back down. Why do I care? Remind the people. Why do you care? Get involved. Okay? Whether they want to do it through another 6 episode series, except not fuck it up this time, and do it that way, that's a perfectly good way to do it. I know Godzilla did this. They did this with I think it's the one on Apple TV. It's like it's about Monarch and stuff, and it brings you into the organization. It shows you how they operate and shows you what kind of titans they've interacted with, and it is actually very interesting. Um, So that's a perfect example of bringing people back down. Okay, we're not going crazy, crazy heavy action here, but you guys need to know this shit. So we're gonna make it super interesting, super enticing, and then we're gonna give you those Godzilla cameos to get you to talk about it online. It's not hard. It's really not. It's just you gotta be able to one, you have to know the source material so that you know what kind of story that you can make. Because if you piss off the fans, that's it. You're done. Cross it out. Bing, bing, done. That's it. Studio shut down. Nobody's gonna give a shit no more. That's why DC failed. Right? That's why Fast and Furious ain't making sales no more, like they used to. Okay. So I'm just saying. Just saying. Now we're at the turning point. Sonic is getting there. Godzilla's already there. They're at the gate.
Most critics agree that this film was solid and an improvement over the previous two. Sonic
True.
3 delivers on its promise of excitement, adventure, and nostalgia, all while maintaining a clear focus on what makes this franchise beloved.
Sorry about that rant, by the way.
The film shines thanks to its self-awareness, witty humor, and emotionally charged narrative. A lot of the audiences mentioned how each Sonic film gets better and better. This franchise has
True.
continued to improve with each new
what I'm
release,
saying.
and the cast and crew did a phenomenal job with this one, and clearly show they have a passion for these characters and their story once again.
Excellent, excellent point brought up by counsel here. Amazing, amazing point. Passion for the story is an absolute triple plus driving force for the show. This is why The Witcher failed because it's such an easy to tell story. It's so easy. So easy to make a fucking 10 out of 10 bangers season every fucking season. Somehow Netflix still fucked that up.
The critics made sure to give Jim Carrey his roses. Whether or not you are a fan of Sonic, this film is worth it just for Jim Carrey, whose demeanor, grimaces, and beats are very reminiscent of his times as Ace Ventura or
Oh my god, Jim Carrey was so good in this movie. The way that he just flips into these characters, it's almost like a light. You just flick it open and he's bing, 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 he's this character. He shuts it off. He opens another one. And now he's this character. It's so incredibly good.
The Grinch. And I found this audience review that perfectly captures the feeling that I and many other people are having with this movie. This movie was amazing. I walked out of the cinema feeling complete. It had exceeded my expectations in every way. There were a lot of crazy references to the original Sonic the Hedgehog games,
True.
the action scenes, humor, and overall
Yeah, I will say another one. That's another good point that he brought up there. Listen, this is one of those movies that does a lot more onto the Sonic lore than the previous two. So it is a good idea to know a little bit about it. Okay. I'm not saying you gotta go it's not that deep. Okay. So you don't have to go fucking play every game, watch every fucking show and all that shit. But yeah, this is one of those that you'll have a better idea of what's going on.
overall feel of the movie was just great. The voice acting was also perfectly portrayed by the actors. If you are a Sonic or Shadow fan like me, you would absolutely love it. Even if you aren't too familiar with the Sonic the Hedgehog lore, I still highly recommend watching it. Overall, it's a very
Yeah.
fun movie to watch, keeping
That's definitely going to be a talking point about this movie, I believe, on both the critic side and a watcher side is that there are a couple bit of lore pieces to pull on in the movie, so it might throw you off a little bit if you're not all that familiar.
you on the edge of your seat while still making you laugh throughout the entire movie. I'm gonna have to agree with the critics and audiences with Sonic 3. Any which way
True.
you cut it, this film is a
Fair,
massive
fair.
success and a massive
100%.
crowd pleaser.
Right back at-
Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is a beautiful movie with great humor, impressive action sequences, and some impactful emotional moments. I'm gonna give it a 9.5 out of 10. But what do you think about the Sonic?
Wow. Okay. Okay, so that's interesting. So we were fairly similar on the Sonic 2. We were different on Sonic 1, and he's higher than I am on Sonic 3. That's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy. I think that's cool, man.
Trilogy? Let me know down in the comments.
Hey, that's it. This is a banger video. This is my first time watching another Nick. Shout out to you. This video I loved. Big fan of that. So if you guys want to see some more of his content, make sure you go subscribe and like his video. And if you guys want to see me react to more of his content, make sure you like and subscribe my video so that way I know that you guys care about this kind of content. I had fun. I thought this was great. He was very well spoken. Um, and I see he definitely has more of these videos. So if you guys want to see me do some more of these, definitely let me know. Uh, but that's gonna be it for this one. So make sure, most importantly, you subscribe to yourself. Okay, self love is important these days. Okay, take care of yourself, take care of others, and peace.